Have you ever felt like you weren't good enough? Like the challenges ahead were just too big for you to handle? Well, today we're diving into the story of a man who probably felt that way 1,000 times over, yet he went on to lead a nation to freedom. This is the incredible story of Moses. Our story begins in ancient Egypt, a land of pyramids and pharaohs. The Hebrew people, descendants of Abraham, were living there as slaves, suffering under the harsh rule of a new pharaoh who feared their growing numbers. He issued a terrible decree: every newborn Hebrew boy was to be thrown into the Nile River. But one mother, Jocheb, couldn't bear to lose her son. In an act of desperate faith, she placed her baby in a waterproof basket and set him afloat among the reeds of the Nile, praying for a miracle. And a miracle happened. The pharaoh's own daughter came down to the river to bathe. She found the basket, saw the crying baby, and her heart was filled with compassion. She knew he was a Hebrew child, but she decided to adopt him as her own. She named him Moses, which means to draw out, because she drew him out of the water. And guess who she hired to be his nurse? His own mother, Jocheb. So, Moses grew up in the splendor of the Egyptian palace, raised as a prince, but he never forgot his true identity. As a young man, Moses saw the suffering of his people firsthand. One day, he witnessed an Egyptian taskmaster brutally beating a Hebrew slave. In a moment of rage, Moses killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. He thought no one had seen him, but the next day, he realized his secret was out. Fearing for his life, Moses fled Egypt. He journeyed far into the desert, to a land called Midian. He went from being a prince in a palace to a fugitive in the wilderness. In Midian, Moses became a shepherd, a humble and lonely life. He married a woman named Zipporah and had a son. For 40 years, he tended his father-in-law's flocks, wandering the vast, silent desert. It must have seemed like his old life, and any grand purpose he might have had, was completely gone. The prince of Egypt was now just a shepherd in a forgotten land. But God had not forgotten him. God was preparing him. One day, while Moses was tending his sheep near Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, he saw something extraordinary. A bush was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. The flames danced, but the leaves remained green. As Moses approached to get a closer look, a voice called out from the bush, "Moses, Moses!" It was the voice of God. God told Moses that he had seen the suffering of his people in Egypt and that he was going to rescue them. And who did God choose to lead this monumental rescue mission? Moses. Moses was stunned. He was full of excuses. "Who am I to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" he asked. He felt inadequate, insignificant. He was a wanted man, a shepherd, not a leader. He even told God he wasn't a good speaker, that he was slow of speech and tongue. But God reassured him. He said, "I will be with you." God wasn't looking for a perfect person. He was looking for a willing person. God promised to give Moses the words to say and the power to perform miracles. He even appointed Moses' brother, Aaron, to be his spokesman. So, with newfound courage, Moses returned to Egypt. He and Aaron went before the mighty Pharaoh, the most powerful ruler on earth, and delivered God's message, "Let my people go." Pharaoh's response was predictable. He laughed. He scoffed. Who was this God that he should obey him? Pharaoh not only refused but also made the Israelites work even harder. It seemed like the mission was a failure from the start. But this was just the beginning of a divine showdown. God unleashed a series of 10 plagues upon Egypt, each one more devastating than the last. The Nile River turned to blood. Frogs, gnats, and flies swarmed the land. Livestock died, people were covered in boils, and hail rained down from the sky. Locusts devoured every green thing, and a thick darkness covered Egypt for 3 days. With each plague, Moses would repeat the demand, "Let my people go," and with each plague, Pharaoh's heart grew harder. He would promise to let them go, but as soon as the plague was lifted, he would change his mind. The final plague was the most terrible of all. God warned that the firstborn son in every Egyptian household would die. But he provided a way of escape for the Israelites. He instructed each family to sacrifice a lamb and mark their doorposts with its blood. When the angel of death passed through Egypt that night, it would pass over the houses marked with the blood. This event, known as the Passover, is still celebrated by Jewish people today as a reminder of God's deliverance. That night, a great cry rose up from Egypt. The Pharaoh's own son was dead. Heartbroken and defeated, Pharaoh finally summoned Moses and told him to take his people and leave. Immediately, the Israelites, more than 600,000 men plus women and children, wasted no time. They gathered their belongings and began their journey out of Egypt, the land of their slavery, after 430 years. God led them not by the shortest route, but by a pillar of cloud during the day, and a pillar of fire at night, a constant, visible sign of His presence. Their freedom, however, was short-lived. Once the initial grief wore off, Pharaoh had a change of heart again. "What have we done?" he fumed. "We've lost our entire workforce." He mustered his army, his best chariots and horsemen, and pursued the Israelites. The fleeing nation soon found themselves trapped. Before them was the vast Red Sea, and behind them, the thunder of Pharaoh's approaching army. Panic set in. They cried out to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?" It was a moment of ultimate crisis. But Moses stood firm. He told them, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then, under God's command, Moses stretched his hand out over the sea. All night long a strong east wind blew and the waters of the Red Sea parted, creating a path of dry land right through the middle of the ocean with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground to the other side. When the Egyptian army charged in after them, Moses once again stretched out his hand. The walls of water crashed down, and the entire army of Pharaoh, his chariots and his horsemen, were swallowed by the sea. Not one of them survived. From the far shore, the Israelites watched in awe. They had witnessed the impossible. They were truly free. The story of Moses is a powerful testament to faith, courage, and the idea that ordinary people can be used for extraordinary purposes. Moses started as a baby in a basket, became a prince, then a fugitive shepherd, and finally, a reluctant leader who stood up to a king and led a nation to freedom. His journey reminds us that even when we feel unqualified or afraid, with faith, we can overcome impossible odds. It's a story of liberation, not just from physical chains, but from the fears that hold us captive. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing stories. Let me know in the comments what part of Moses' story resonates with you the most. Until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.